All right, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Yes, it is Thanksgiving 2014, the best holiday of the year, at least as far as I'm concerned, because you get food and football. It's kind of the best possible combination. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. It is the live Press Row Hangout Thanksgiving edition. And joining me tonight are three of my good friends. Up first from Seattle, Washington, the owner of Pasta Padre, Mr. Brian Vita. Brian, how are you, sir?
It's a special Thanksgiving because the Seahawks and 49ers play this year, the first time ever on Thanksgiving. So this is exciting. It's a big game. The winner's going to end up winning the division. The loser might not make the playoffs. That's how I feel about it. So I am pumped for Thursday. Forget the food and all that. That's great too, but the football is going to be awesome. 3 good games that day.
It's a good point. I got the Eagles-Cowboys, too. 2 8-3 first-place teams. And I'll be driving home during the second half of that, so that'll just be spectacular. But that's all right. Also joining us tonight, back from his sojourn trying to conquer Central Europe, from That Sports Gamer, Mr. TJ Larabin. TJ, how are you, sir?
Doing good, Rich. Happy to be home. But it was a great trip, and now I'm ready to talk sports video games, because that's all I've played since I got back home.
Good stuff. And, of course, our regular special guest from Dodd Scientifics and the great state of Utah, Mr. Pete Dodd. Pete, how are you, sir?
I am, I want to say doing well because I'm in a good mood, but I'm clearly sick, as you can probably hear. But I do want to chime in on Thanksgiving. This is my first Thanksgiving out here in Utah where, like, I don't really have any family. And everyone that we know has like 14 children, so I think it's just going to be a complete nightmare.
Well, that's what television is made for, right?
And beer.
Good point. All right, well, there's a lot to talk about, a lot of good stuff. It is Thanksgiving, so football is on everybody's mind. Obviously, we just had the draft of the Press Row Podcast Madden 15 League. Let's go around the table real quick because everybody on the show tonight is in the league. Brian Vita, how are you feeling about your first draft class of your Jacksonville Jaguars?
I always feel like I'm drafting blind in these things because I don't have enough scouting points, and you don't even have some of the basics on these guys. Give me the 40 times. Everybody knows what the 40 times are going into a draft, but you don't Madden. You might be able to scout their ratings to an extent on a few guys, depending on how many points you have to spend. But I ended up I traded down in the first round. I started at 16. I traded down to 19. I considered trading down again to 25. Because I had 3 guys that I was really considering there, and all 3 were still available, but I didn't want to risk it at that point. I took a defensive tackle who was projected to go end of the round, but I felt like based on my scouting, I liked what he offered, and he ended up being rated an 82, so he's my number 1 defensive tackle already for Jacksonville. I've improved my run defense quite a bit with that pick and outside linebacker in the second round, so I'm all right with it. After that, the guys in the 60s, kind of worthless probably, but what are you going to do?
Pete Todd, how'd your draft go with your Jets?
It went backwards. I knew I needed a quarterback because I don't believe in Geno, and
what? Shocking.
Yeah, and Mike Vick jetted. So did whoever the other backup was. So I decided to go quarterback in the first round, and because of rule controversies, so I'm playing this entire season with, just saying that I, collusion by you guys to be able to trade down. I ended up picking like a late first rounder, like with the 7th pick, but his name is Jesus. It might be Jesus, but I'm going to call him Jesus. And so he's going to be my quarterback, but then everything went up. It was like then I got a free safety, and he had a higher overall than my first round pick. And then in the 3rd round, I got I believe a cornerback. And he had a higher overall than the 2nd or 1st round guy. So like it just got better as things went on. So that was exciting.
Nice. My Eagles had a very ordinary draft, which makes it the best draft I've ever had, because typically I will draft a defensive lineman early on, and he will wind up being rated in the 40s. I don't think any of the players that I drafted were rated higher than a 74, but I also don't think any of them were rated lower than a 68. So I basically got a bunch of guys that aren't ever going to amount to a whole lot. But at least I didn't completely kill myself with the terrible pick. So I guess I'm feeling all right with that. Clearly, this is a win-now team. I made it to the Super Bowl where I lost to some guy who I forget who that was. So it's not about the future. It's about today. Speaking of Super Bowl, oh, that's right. Yeah, the Super Bowl champion Indianapolis Colts, headed by T.J. Lyman. T.J., how did your draft go?
Well, Rich, it was very tough because, with all the pressure of being Super Bowl champion, having that 30-second pick, very difficult to get through the whole draft being the last guy. But I set myself up for a really tough decision to make at the end of this year. My first round pick was Jamil for real. And if he is for real, it's going to be pretty good because he's an 80 overall halfback right now. He's got superstar development trait thing. So Trent Richardson did great last year. I think he ended up with like the 6th most rushing yards. After this season, he's a free agent. Do I re-sign him? Is this guy faux real, as I believe he will be? It's going to be big. Also got a bunch of crappy guys that I've already cut most of them, so I'm looking forward to this year.
This Trent Richardson right here, is this the fellow that you're referring to?
He could be on the move to any team that's not run by Brian or the Texans in our league. So if anybody needs a halfback, let me know.
All right. A couple other things I wanted to mention real quick before we get going. First of all is what we've been playing. But before we get to what we've been playing, TJ, you were in Europe for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What the heck was that like, man? Did you have a nice vacation?
Yeah, it was great. Amsterdam was amazing. Everybody was super nice. Met some family. Found out where my grandmother grew up and my great-grandparents. And awesome trip. Didn't get to play any video games. Brought my Vita with me on the flight. Never even turned it on. Though there was one point during the Heineken experience, the last day I was there, they had a whole section dedicated to Heineken being proud sponsor of the UEFA Champions League. So I hopped in. They had some PlayStation 3 set up with Pro Evolution 14, I think it was. So I played like 5 minutes of that, scored a goal, and was like, all right, we're good here. Then walked away. But no games, but tons of walking and tons of great culture that I absorbed. So it was a lot of fun.
Excellent. Well, it's good to
actually, you know what I forgot? Rich, let me talk over you because I know you love that for your editing. I forget which. The Amsterdam Museum. Amsterdam Museum had a whole section dedicated to soccer or football, as I like to call it over there. That was pretty awesome. They had some custom jerseys where it was like a half Man United, half Man City jersey, or a half AC Milan, half Inter jersey. Those were pretty cool. I saw I think it was like an Ajax casket. I didn't know you could get like custom caskets for your favorite football team, so you can get buried in. That was pretty cool. But it was a great experience.
As long as there were no Everton-Liverpool crossovers, I think I'd be fine with that.
Nope.
And speaking of, TJ, I saw that you were tweeting how interested you were in the New York City Football Club jerseys. Are you now just flat-out a Man City guy and switching allegiances from Liverpool? Is that what you're doing here?
No. See, here's what my thing is. As you know, I am a hardcore what's the opposite of opponent, probably, of teams with terrible names, such as the New York Jets and Giants, who play in New Jersey. So I can't be a huge fan of the New York, New Jersey Red Bulls. So I'm just going to make my soccer team be New York City FC. And Kaká went to Orlando, so that doesn't even mean anything.
David Villa, right?
They got Villa and Lampard, so should be a pretty good team to watch.
But they wear the Man City jerseys.
Hey, man. I only found out about that because a great guy named Pasta Padre told me about it.
Thank you.
That's true. He is a great guy. Well, all right. So that's what TJ has not been playing, but what he has been doing, I suppose, spending 2 weeks in probably one of the greatest cities in the world is acceptable. Brian Weedai, what have you been playing, man?
Well, there are two games that I want to get into with my friend's daughter. Little Big Planet 3 and Lego Batman 3. We haven't had much of an opportunity to do that, so probably later this week, and then she'll have off school and stuff coming up. So really, the only other thing other than a little bit of the sports games lately is I finished Sunset Overdrive. I mean, I've talked about it a few times now, and I was cruising my way through it, but I actually finished it, which puts it in an esteemed company with just very few games that I actually take all the way to completion. So I mean that tells me how much I enjoyed it, and the fact that I haven't already put it up to like trade in or sell. I am wanting to go back in and do more there, do more with it. Try the multiplayer, which I hadn't touched at all. But Sunset Overdrive was a blast to play through, and I really would. If there are any deals on it coming up here later this week, I'd really recommend it to people.
Good stuff. Hey, Pete Dodd, what have you been playing?
I have been playing Destiny, which is not exciting at all to anyone. Like, it's getting to the point where it's like, talking about playing like Dota or I guess on this show it'd be like talking about playing like Madden or whatever. But the thing that changed this weekend is I've loved Destiny pretty much for all the single player and co-op stuff, and I thought that the player versus player stuff was pretty good. It just didn't hook me for whatever reason. And they had an event this weekend called Iron Banner. I was like, I'm gonna try this, and I ended up playing about 10 hours a day because it was a very short. You had like 3 or 4 days, and you got to a certain rank, and if you got a certain rank, you got to buy better gear and stuff. And I was having so much fun. And at first, it was just like the farming, which is something that some people love, which I do, but I can't make an argument as to why that's fun. Like, that's just my own psychosis that I find that repetition fun. But then I actually started to get good at the PvP, and I was like, wow, this is actually really, really well done. The way that the different classes sort of counter each other and everything. I am more in love with Destiny now than I was when it came out, and if you read the internet, it's the worst game that's ever happened that sold like 8 or 10 million copies.
Interesting. I went out and bought Far Cry 4, which is not the kind of game that I would typically go out and buy. I play almost virtually nothing but sports games, but it's been a long time since I played anything resembling a game like a Far Cry. In fact, I've never even played a Far Cry game before. The last game I played, that was a shooter, violent game, that kind of a thing, was Grand Theft Auto 5 last year when it came out, and after a few hours I was like, no, this is not my kind of game. But I wanted to at least, there have been so many games that have come out recently. I wanted to at least play something that was new and different and sort of just got me out of my normal rotation. And, it wasn't going to be Halo. It wasn't going to be Call of Duty. It wasn't going to be that. But, like, Far Cry has such a good reputation. It wasn't going to be Assassin's Creed, regardless of the problems it had. That's just definitely not my kind of game. But Far Cry has such a good reputation. So many people that I respect love the series so much. And it came out, and while it does have online components, it doesn't have to be online, so I didn't have to worry if the online was not working or anything. And it's incredibly compelling to me. It is I have a tremendous amount of respect for the game. It is beautiful. It is very impressive. What's funny about it to me is I actively dislike a lot of the things that I have to do. Um, like I don't like killing animals in the wild. I don't want to go shoot animals in the face, for example. It's not fun, but you have to do it. And sometimes you have to do it because they're attacking you for no reason, and other times you have to do it because you need their skin or something. I don't like. I'm horrified by the opening of it. The opening of the game is the same trailer that they ran at E3, which I just found reprehensible. And the way that the game begins, I just can't stand. And there's a lot of the same kind of thing you've done before, go here and kill these people and stuff. But I've sort of kept on going through, and the world has opened up quite a bit. And Far Cry is just so big. There's so many different things that you can do. There's a lot of depth to, what you can craft and how you can alter how you approach things. So many different ways that you can do stuff. The story in and of itself isn't fantastic, but it's interesting enough to where I want to advance. There's really interesting points in time where you'll make a choice to go with one character or another that will have impact. So, there's a lot to it that is compelling to me. And like I say, I actively dislike some of the things that I have to do. I can get past that so that I can sort of keep moving forward. Pete, does that sound bizarre?
No, it doesn't sound bizarre. It's just disappointing to me because I was pretty convinced that you were going to find the violence just abhorrent and then want to get rid of it. And so I was going to try to borrow it for a couple weeks and then play it myself because just, circumstances, I haven't been able to play it. But I've played Far Cry 1, 2, and 3. And they are good games, and they are it's truly a sandbox, which is what's really fun about it to me. And I'm not saying this about Far Cry 4 because I haven't played it, but that's what the fun of the earlier ones was. And so I can see now why you'd be like, there's this disgusting violence that I'm not really into, but there's a lot of fun there. Like, I probably shouldn't have got my hopes up because there actually is quite a bit of fun in the sandbox.
I mean, some of the missions are just like, go here and slaughter these people, but unlike Grand Theft Auto 5, it's not completely weighted down by that. Like, you can just kind of like one of the things that was great, like I'm driving, and by the way, the driving is terrible too, but I'm driving and I stop and I look over and there's a glider about 20 feet from me and I'm like, no, there's no way. So I get out of my little ATV and I walk over and stand by the glider. It's like, all right, press square to get in. So I get in the glider and the next thing I know, I'm randomly just gliding over this huge valley, and other times you come across these little mini helicopters that are amazing. That brings me back to when in Vice City, which was really I also really did enjoy San Andreas, but when you fly over the city, it's a great feeling to be flying around the world of Far Cry 4, and at one point I'm like, well, I wonder if I can take out this bell tower by hovering over this bell tower in my helicopter and then dropping out on the top, because everything you need is at the top. And I would have been successful had I not hit slightly wrong and then fallen to my death at the base of the bell tower. But anyway.
Well, that's one of the coolest things about the game, though, is that someone else could look at that and be like, I'm going to infiltrate on the ground, I'm going to go stealth, I'm going to, and then try to make my way up the tower. And you are like, I found this thing and I could fly over it and drop down. I mean, like that's one of the things that I think we should be looking for more in games is the choice. I mean, that's the problem. Like, the Call of Duty campaigns are fun just in a popcorn movie kind of way, but there's no choice to them. It's just go down the corridor, shoot enough people where you can go down the corridor further. Where games like Far Cry, like they sort of open up your options.
For sure. Although now I'm at a point where I've opened up enough, I'm almost paralyzed. Like I don't know where to go. I mean, I could go literally do 30 different things, and I'm just like, wow, which way to go? So that's sort of where I am right now. But I am enjoying enough of it, and I am certainly compelled. It's a compelling experience. It's beautiful, very well done. Like this is the opposite of Assassin's Creed or Halo Master Chief Collection. Like this thing to me feels like it's fully put together. And it's weird to say, like this game actually feels like it's put together, but it is. In 2014, that's sort of where we are. All right, bunch of things to talk about tonight. I want to start with Brian Vita, something that you brought up that I thought was very interesting and I know got people talking. That was this week. You posted an article on Pasta Padre where you posited that NBA Live at this point should be the first AAA game to basically go free-to-play based around Ultimate Team. I'm curious sort of what led you to that and what the reaction was to that commentary.
Yeah, so this is, if we want NBA Live to continue, it's not selling. Its sales are absolutely dreadful. It can't sustain itself on those sales. And in order for EA to make digital revenue on a game, they have to sell the game first. So they figured this out in other areas. They figured it out on mobile, where their games now are free-to-play, Ultimate Team-based, and PC, where they have FIFA World, which is also free-to-play, Ultimate Team-based. So the natural progression is that eventually they're going to branch these Ultimate Team modes off into their own free-to-play game. It only makes sense because if they can make the hundreds of millions of dollars they do now, when people have that $60 barrier, how much could they make when there's no barrier, when more people have access to the game? Because right now, not many people are going to buy NBA Live, and not many people are going to be able to access Ultimate Team because of that. But if they could go in and as an alternative, it actually makes a lot of sense because NBA Live is not going to be able to take on NBA 2K head-to-head. And forgetting that part of it, the competition part of it, they still have to sell enough copies of the game to justify its existence, which they can't do this year, which they're not going to be able to do next year. It's several years away from when they could potentially reach profitability with this game, and then they're still deep in the hole for 6 or 7 years of failures. So all of us want competition. All of us want more sports games. Rather than NBA Live disappearing, which right now, if you had to put odds on it, would NBA Live be back next year? I think the odds would favor it would not be back next year. In order to save it, how about they do this? There's no better game they have to experiment with than NBA Live, because the others, they continue to sell, they continue to make hundreds of millions of dollars on. But here's a chance, instead of just scrapping the series, here's a chance where they could try something new and say, here, NBA Live is free to play, and then you go in and it's essentially the Ultimate Team mode. And we've talked about what's the biggest deficiency in NBA Live 15. It's that the modes are not fleshed out. So if you got rid of the career mode that they have, the Rising Star career mode, and the Dynasty mode that they had, and since people aren't playing it anyway, this isn't like a situation with NHL where people would be up in arms because features they expected are missing. They'd just be happy that, hey, we have a game we can actually access other than NBA 2K. So I think this is something that EA probably has considered at some point, and it might be time to pull the trigger on.
Pete, did you have a question you wanted to ask Brian about this?
I do. I mean, we saw part of this with what was a Fight Night 410. Like, I don't remember what number it was, but they released the full game, but then they chopped it up into bits.
Champion.
Yeah. But the thing with Fight Night is that it's not a huge. I mean, they got individual licenses and stuff. You know far more about this sort of underbelly of sports games than I do, Pasta. Would the NBA allow a free-to-play game on a console? Because like free-to-play games on phones are accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Free-to-play games on consoles are accepted sometimes, but there's never been this big of a thing, like an NBA game being free-to-play.
Yeah. Well, it might not actually be in the contract they have right now. Related to the contract they have now is that if they release it as a retail game, it has to be $60. If they release it as a digital game only, which they were going to do with NBA Live 13, they can price it lower. That was going to be $20. So there's opportunity there. The contract they have, from what I've heard, expires after this year, which is another reason why there's contemplation that NBA Live wouldn't return, because why would they renew that license when they continue to lose money on it? So they could potentially negotiate something like that, as long as it doesn't infringe on what their strongest partner is, NBA 2K, as long as it's not going to take away potential revenue from them. I mean, that could be the complication there, that they want to protect 2K Sports because that's their strong partner now. And if the idea of NBA Live being free and then people spending a lot of money in Ultimate Team there would harm 2K Sports, I think they might not allow that. But I think there's flexibility there, because all these contracts, when they were initially signed, the idea of free-to-play really didn't exist. You go back and you look at Madden's exclusive license, where they didn't even put mobile in for exclusivity, because at the time when that contract was first made, mobile wasn't a big deal. And so that's why you still have other companies coming in with mobile licenses on mobile, or of the sort there. So that's it's an interesting question, and one I don't know the exact legalities behind. But I think there would be potential there for them to negotiate that, especially if they are entering into a new contract, because ultimately, if the NBA wants a cut of that revenue, they might consider that.
Go ahead, Pete.
I just want to say I agree with you, Brian. I think that is a brilliant idea. I think it's a brilliant idea for EA. I think it's a brilliant idea for the NBA, especially considering that EA Sports historically, and I think TJ will back me up on this, has always done Ultimate Team better in their sports games. So, like, allowing them to go in that direction with the franchise, I think makes a lot of sense. Like, I agree with you 100%. I wasn't asking the question just to be contrarian. I just don't know what the deals are at this point. But like you said, like when they run out, we're in a new world, so we have to figure out where to go from there.
TJ Lauerman, would you be interested in a free-to-play Ultimate Team powered NBA Live?
It would actually make me play the game, or it would actually probably get me to play the game. But I think if it does good, it would set a horrible precedent, because if it does good, they would probably never sell a retail copy again, and they'd probably never try to build out any sort of franchise or any of the stuff that we want more of in games now that we're not getting. And if it does good, maybe the next year they do Madden Ultimate Team as its own standalone thing, and then the CFM doesn't work the next year, and they never fix that, and then all that extra stuff is gone, or you end up paying, now you pay $20 and you get just Madden Ultimate Team. I think once you start breaking up stuff like this, it starts going down like a rocky road. And one of the things we always talked about was all the EA Sports games, they should just break out free to play the Ultimate Team, make it free to play, get all their money that way. And it ended up getting to the point where we thought that was a good idea, and then we realized that if that does happen, kind of like we're seeing in Madden a little bit, they're just going to leave all the other modes behind and just keep going away from them. So it would be a cool experiment with NBA Live, but I don't see any real good coming from it, even if it works. Because if you're a diehard NBA fan, you're going to play this, spend your money here, and you're still going to want to go and pick up NBA 2K for all the franchise and everything else that you need.
You know, it's a fascinating situation, really, because NBA Live 15 is much better than NBA Live 14, but and nobody that I can see will actually release the real sales figures, so it makes it difficult. You have to rely upon various sources that you know are not accurate. So you have to sort of take the information with a grain of salt, but also sort of understand that while they may not be accurate, they're, chances are they are at least fairly representative, right? So the sales of NBA Live 14 were not good, but evidently the sales of NBA Live 15, while everyone recognizes that the game is much better, has been significantly worse. And Brian Vita, I give you credit for sort of calling this. You've said it for years that once you lose the core base, it's really hard to get them back, and people won't come back again. And it looks like a lot of people were willing to give Live a chance with 14, and most of those people were not willing to give 15 a chance, even though it is better. And I'm, and people who've been listening, especially lately, know that I'm a junkie now with NBA 2K15. Like, I love me that game. I even got this stupid app on my phone, and every day I log in and I get the free VC, and I play Pick the Winners to get more VC. And every night on the treadmill, I play 2 of my player games. And then every night after playing Far Cry 4 for an hour and a half, I cleanse my palate and I play another season game of my GM. And I mean, I'm just all in on NBA 2K15. So there's so many different directions that it could go. I sort of think that no matter what even though a lot of people play Ultimate Team and there are versions of games out there that are Ultimate Team only, it just feels to me that without the core game there, you can't go in that direction. And NBA Live doesn't have enough of a core game to where they could go in that direction. But I don't know. And the other thing is, EA is actually, and there are a lot of ways to slice their money situation, but they're at least profitable again. And while the sales are down because they don't release the sales figures, the gross margins and the profit margins are way up because of all the digital revenue that they are getting out of these. And we've heard them say this before, EA doesn't like to abandon franchise. The only reason they don't have baseball is because their competition got an exclusive rival. It would take a lot for EA to sort of admit failure, so to speak. And I'm not calling NBA Live 15 as a game a failure, but I think that would be a really difficult decision for them to make, to just walk away from the NBA. Pete, do you think that they would have an easier time than I do basically abandoning the NBA franchise if that ultimately is? And again, Sean O'Brien has come on this show and said he guarantees that there will be an NBA Live 16. So I don't know, Pete, do you get the feeling that they would walk away from the franchise now that it's just starting to get its legs back, if the sales are so bad as they're sort of indicated it being?
I don't think so. I mean, like, I think if you think about it and you're like, oh, they should just give up, they're not going to be able to catch up, whatever, it's going to take millions of dollars. But at the same time, the NBA, like, we're not talking about, like, UFC right now, or, like, and no offense to UFC or whatever, but we're not talking about smaller leagues. Even MLB, like, the MLB, the show, does not do what NBA does. So the upside will keep them in it. I think, though, ironically, I think that if they can't go the like what Brian was saying, they should put the game out for cheap and just get it into people's hands. It's kind of like, and like NFL 2K5. It was $20 and Madden was 50. And it was to a lot of people better, but I think that probably makes the most sense. Like, they need to get it into people's hands. Like, last year, I wanted to buy last year's version at some point, and the game just, like, its price just stayed up. Like, it went from 60 to 40, and then, like, right before the next season started, it dropped to, like, 30, but even 30 was too much.
And the thing about it is, and again, NBA Live, I'm not going to sit here and say it's as good as NBA 2K15. It's not, but it is fun. You can have fun playing it. Brian, I've played you through SharePlay. Pete, I've played you through SharePlay, and we both had fun playing the game. And so that's, again, price is another interesting interesting aspect of it. So. But all right, I don't think we're going to solve NBA Live's issues here tonight. We do want to talk about something else that a bunch of folks have brought up, and that is post-release support. We have the entire year to look back on how different sports games have or have not done a good job with post-game release evaluation. You've got Madden, which has roster updates every week, and then they have their likeness update, and then FIFA's doing a major patch. UFC has dramatically upgraded the game a number of times. It's a very different experience. I mean, if you take a look at the landscape of the post-game or post-release support, Brian Vita, what games do you think have done the best job?
Yeah, well, for all the frustration people have with some EA releases, they've generally been the most consistent and the most Okay,
I think we're back. That was weird.
Yeah.
So, good thing we just started a brand new topic, Brian. You were saying EA has generally provided the most, and I think that's where it ended right there.
Oh, that was my whole point. I was just going to stop there. But EA they've been the most reliable in providing updates for games after they release. Plus, when we talk about post-release support, there's also things to consider like roster updates, and so they've always been the most reliable in that regard. I think you see it also in what they've done this year. Now, there are the outliers like NHL and EA UFC, which they needed to do that because the game released in such a flat fashion and people were not buying it and they were not happy with it. But even with Madden, FIFA, and Live hasn't really gotten there yet, but they've done a strong job. So Madden has had 2 patches, one of them a really significant big one. They had the likeness update that just came out, plus they've had the weekly roster updates. FIFA has had 3 patches, 2 of which have been pretty big. So then you have NHL and UFC, which they've needed those updates to make them more viable products. NHL has had 3 patches with new features and such, but their roster updates have been pretty weak. There's only been a few, and they haven't changed a single player rating. And UFC has had 5 patches, 14 new fighters, and they're adding 4 legends next month. So, I mean, they've completely turned that game around. And then you look at the other games from 2K. NBA 2K has had 1 patch, but it was a significant one. And then they've had roster updates nearly every day. The show had 1 patch, and that's it. That's not really out of the ordinary for Sony. They release 1 or 2 generally, and then they've had weekly rosters. So I think in terms of post-release support, companies are more in tune with what consumers expect now. But it really just depends. I mean, we could go back. We could talk for an hour about the poor state a lot of these games release in these days, and that's why you need all these post-release updates. But it's a dedication to consumers that companies show. I think it's important to really build that trust with people that, hey, we're going to work on the game, improve it, and even add some things to make your experience better.
You can break it up into two different ways. There's the roster updates, and basically, player movement and things like that. And then there are the actually three areas. Number one, there's the roster updates. Number two, then there is the patches just to fix bugs. And then thirdly, there's certain things like with the UFC and with FIFA where the patches actually materially affect the way that the game is played. And those are the ones that I find the most interesting, because if you are a regular player of a game, you sort of figure out how to do stuff. Like FIFA, I think, is a great example, right? How do you do things in FIFA? You sort of figure out, okay, well, you zig and you zag and you zig and you zag. That's one way to get around, or you take it into the corner when you're on offense, and then you swing around and center it. Like, you sort of figure it out. And sometimes the patches that come out fix things that actually make the stuff that you've learned how to do not work anymore. Pete, would you rather they not do those kinds of things and leave it at the rosters and sort of just fixing the bugs, or is this sort of constant tinkering just with in some ways, the core fundamentals of the way you play the game kind of going a little too far?
I want them to change the way that the games play, and FIFA, to me, is one of the best examples. When I got FIFA 15, I felt like gameplay-wise, it was a step backwards from FIFA 14. And through the patches, I now feel like FIFA 15 is a better game than FIFA 14 was. So that, to me, I mean, that's awesome. Like, I bought a game and, like, okay, it's not awesome to feel disappointed at first, but to feel disappointed and this isn't disappointed like in a Drive Club or Master Chief way where, like, online doesn't work. This was just like AI doing weird stuff. And the fact that they fixed a lot of that stuff, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but the fact that they made it it made more sense. Like, players were going where they were supposed to be going, has made me stick with the game where I was about to give up on it. And that's the thing. Like, the Madden patch came out like 2 days ago, and like, we're all in the Press Row League. Some of us are in the Dodd Scientifics League, but we're both right now in the draft thing, and I don't really play the game other than in the league. And the patch notes were disappointing to me because it was just like, fix this bug, fix this bug. It said nothing about gameplay tuning. Now, I don't know. I mean, we all know that, like, when there's a patch, that there's a lot of things that they don't list. And then you start playing it, and you're like, oh, this is different. And then you try to figure out, like, is this placebo, or is this actually different? And, and I haven't even played it yet because of the fact that we're in the off season in both seasons. But I will say that I was disappointed just in the patch notes. Like, I want sports games to react to how people are playing them. Like, in FIFA, like, first, like at launch, I guess it had the launch day patch. I'm sure, I don't even know if it did, but almost every game does, so I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, like, you could, you could just crisscross down the middle of the field and then just kick it in, like, either like upper left, upper right corner. You could just do that, and you can't anymore. That's good. That is good. That's what I want out of patches.
And you definitely can't do that in Pro Evo, as I continually discover as I get the ball taken away from me. TJ Lauerman, last time we spoke about Madden Ultimate Team, you actually were talking about how they give you so much in Ultimate Team, it's too much, and you just couldn't even bear it, could hardly deal with it anymore. I mean, so clearly the post-release support of Ultimate Team is a thing unto itself. Do you still feel that way about Ultimate Team, or are you in a sort of a different place with it? How do you, what's your opinion on how they've supported that, particularly the Madden Ultimate Team post-release?
Yeah, I applaud them for all the post-release support that they've had. I think it's probably been the most supported thing of all the games that's been out there. Even, FIFA does their weekly Team of the Week stuff, but Madden with all their collections and stuff, it's so much more than any other game has. It's just kind of ridiculous. But yeah, as I said before my vacation 3 weeks ago or whenever we did the last chat, yeah, the big update came out, and now it's just kind of paralyzing. I haven't really done anything in it. I've looked at the screens a couple times and just thought, yeah, there's 700 or 800 solo challenges to do, and then playing online against people that are going to back out after 5 minutes. It's just a little overwhelming right now, especially if someone gets Madden for Christmas or Thanksgiving. I think, and they try to go into Ultimate Team, I think they're just going to be completely locked out of the game.
Interesting. Couple other things that we wanted to talk about tonight. One of them, Black Friday is coming up, and deals are abounding. If you just do a quick Google search or check out Amazon, there's some interesting PlayStation 4 bundles. There's some interesting Xbox One bundles. Brian Vita, you always do a great job letting your readers know about some good deals with sports games. I've seen a few interesting things. One of them I even saw that I think on PlayStation or on PSN right now, NCAA Football 14 is like $8 for PlayStation Plus subscribers, $14 for non-PS Plus subscribers. But Pete, what are some of the interesting deals that you have seen and either posted about or will be posting about shortly on Pasta Padre?
Well, my name's not Pete, but thank you, Rich.
Oh, did I say Pete? I'm sorry,
yeah.
Brian. My bad.
I waited to see if Pete was going to take that.
I was so excited that I was going to be able to post on Pasta Padre.
My bad.
Yeah, this is news to me. So, you're right, Rich. There is the NCAA 14 for PS3 is eight something for PlayStation Plus. Today, we talked a bit about post-release support just earlier, and EA UFC having 5 patches and Legends coming next month. Well, the game right now, if you want to get it digitally, you can get it as a PlayStation Plus member for $14, which I don't care how light the content is for the offline, for career mode and stuff. If you enjoy the online matches, it's a good game now because they've really they've improved that gameplay so much that at $14 you can't really complain about anything. Over on Xbox, I think I'd read it was supposed to be 13 something, but when I checked earlier it was 20. Even still at 20, that's a great deal. So. There's going to be retail deals on that too. I don't know what it is because they're not going to advertise a game like that. But that's a great opportunity there if you have any interest in UFC, especially because the next game isn't going to be out till 2016. It's not like the sequel's 3 months away, so you can get a ton of value out of that, and EA is going to keep supporting it. And then Black Friday deals. Yeah, there's some great console opportunities also, and then the sports games are all basically $30 no matter where you go. Madden, FIFA, NBA 2K. It's unclear whether we'll see any like that for Live or NHL or Pro Evolution, which just came out. Those are tougher because they're not going to be advertised in a retailer pamphlet. So keep an eye out. I tweet all the time. I tweet the deals because some of them, Amazon Lightning deals, they can go in minutes or seconds in some cases, which is crazy. There's a whole controversy about people who use some illegal click thing so that they get in right as this is usually on higher end items like TVs and stuff, but they get in, it goes up on a Lightning deal, and then it's gone immediately. So keep an eye on my Twitter. I'll send out alerts anytime something big comes up.
It's so interesting because like NBA is relatively new, 2K15. WWE 2K15, brand new. It'll be interesting to see if that's getting any deals. I mean, that has been kind of I don't know if a polar reaction to WWE. I guess it seems to me that there has been a muted reaction. This was the first wrestling game on next-gen consoles. The reviews have not been wildly high. They haven't been terrible either. TJ, or have they been terrible, Brian?
Yeah, the last time I looked at Metacritic, it was a 59 on
Oh,
Xbox One, and
yikes.
it was a 68 on PS4. That was a few days ago. It might have shifted, but I mean, that's getting into the EA UFC, NBA Live type area where it's really getting knocked pretty hard. But I mean, there are people enjoying it, but there seem to be a lot of omissions. I mean, almost not quite to the level of NHL 15, but enough that fans of the series are kind of disappointed by that.
TJ Lyerman, do you have WWE 2K15? If not, are you going to get it, or are you going to be looking for perhaps a Black Friday type deal for this game?
Yeah, I think I might actually be looking for the Black Friday type deal. I've heard some of the negative comments about the game, and I kind of understand why the developers went those ways with the new chaining system, so you can't be doing like crazy good moves right at the beginning of the match. But I also heard that gets very tedious very early on. So I am looking forward to picking it up. I was thinking about getting it when I got back. I was actually thinking about, if I come home from the airport, it'll be like 12:30 in the afternoon. I can just go to Target, pick it up. But I figure maybe some beautiful retailer will have it for $39.99 on Friday, and I can go swoop it up or something. So I'm going to wait on that.
What's your price that you'll see on that'd be like, oh, I'm getting that right now?
I mean, if it was $39.99, I'd definitely jump on it. I doubt it'll be that low. But if it's $50, I'll probably go for it.
Pete, you mentioned that you have some thoughts on Xbox One versus PlayStation 4 sales. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
I think that this month is going to be extremely interesting because there's two very different directions that have been taken between the two consoles. I mean, like, obviously, just looking at the big picture, the Xbox One has, they got rid of the Kinect, they've dropped price, they've done all of these different deals. The PlayStation 4 really hasn't. They had the Destiny bundle, but the Destiny bundle was $450, I think, maybe 440. So it was like you saved 10 or 20 bucks. It wasn't a huge deal.
It was it was about getting the white PlayStation 4, right? I mean, it wasn't about saving money. It was about a different looking PlayStation 4.
Yeah, absolutely. But Microsoft with the Xbox One has been doing all of these different sort of pack-ins. Like early in September, you could get the Madden one, and then you get a game or two games with it. And the same thing with the Sunset Overdrive one, and now like with the Assassin's Creed Unity one. So they being Microsoft, their Black Friday is not going to be as exciting. They're basically dropping $20 or $25 off of their bundle currently. Black Friday for Sony is going to be the first time that they actually offer a deal. It's still the same price. It's $400, which that's why I find this interesting. Are people really excited about $330 or $400 for a PlayStation 4, but it comes with Grand Theft Auto 5 and The Last of Us?
And they have that same price for the Lego Batman Little Big Planet one as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. So they have the kids marketed, they have the adults marketed, but it's a higher price point, and so those are both amazing deals when you look at the historical price of the PlayStation 4, and Microsoft, like, their deal is it's $20 cheaper. Like right now, I would go buy one. Screw the $20. I want the thing right now. You know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And I'm not saying that I have the answer, because I don't. It could be, it could just be the lower price wins, or it could be, people who were waiting on the PlayStation or the Power Grand Theft Auto, You know, like, because Grand Theft Auto is a force in this industry. I honestly cannot wait to see how the sales are in the United States, you know, like with these two consoles, because they're going at it at very different ways.
Yeah, and it's also fascinating as to what the decision point is be. I mean, we've talked about it a bunch of times. I think a lot of us went PlayStation 4 early. I mean, I think we all got, well, no, actually not all, but I mean, we all went PlayStation 4 early because we knew that's what we were going to play, and we wanted to be where our friends are. And the sort of the thinking was the more and more of your friends that get the PS4, the more the PS4 will be the console. But money talks, and the Xbox One pound for pound, dollar for dollar is pretty compelling right now. And the long-standing dominance of the 360, particularly in North America, means there's probably some latent demand and some brand loyalty to that. So yeah, like I'm it is going to be really fascinating. Hopefully just everybody buys both of these things, because we're all in a better place when both of these consoles, and the Wii U too for that fact. I mean, my goodness, look at what the Super Smash Brothers has done for the Wii U. It's been tremendous. Off the beaten path here, but it's a question that popped up in my mind. Let's say you're out shopping on Friday, if you're crazy enough to. TJ Lauerman, what is the one game that has come out recently, you know, this avalanche of AAA games, that the one game that you're like, all right, if this is the game, if I'm going to get one game today, this is the game that I don't have that I want to get. What is that game for you, TJ?
Grand Theft Auto 5.
Okay.
I have not played it yet. My wife has beat it twice on my PlayStation. That's been moved into the living room. I've had to play a flying mission once or twice. But I'm actually really looking forward to it. And it sounds like everything on the PS4 is pretty amazing with that game, with the graphical fidelity and the new first-person mode.
Brian Weedai, what is the one game that you just are like, okay, this is the one I'm going to get if you're walking around on Black Friday that you sort of know you want, but you haven't gotten it yet?
Okay, first of all, I don't walk around on Black Friday, Rich. That's insanity. I do not go out to a store on Black Friday. Please stay home. buy online.
Come on, by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, everybody's gone home. The place is empty. You're like, hey, this is great.
Remember, all this stuff starts on Thanksgiving now. You have to be. There were people lined up for like 2 weeks to get a cheap TV at Best Buy or something. So, if there's one game, it's probably because I need to get it regardless. It's Pro Evolution Soccer 2015. I don't know if there'll be a deal. I'd like to get a deal on it because it's really hard for me to justify having 2 soccer games. But that would be the one that pops up. And then anything else that just, I'm like, there's a deal on a game that I forgot about, or there's a deal on a game that recently came out that I was like, not really my type of game, but at $30, whatever, I'll give it a shot. So I'll just be keeping my eyes open.
Okay, so let me rephrase it a little bit. A non-sports game then, Brian. So, you know, just something, one of these AAA games that you haven't gotten. What do you think would be at the top of your list if you get the deal?
Well, now that you talked about Far Cry, maybe that would be one.
Okay.
It's hard for me to think back to everything that's come out, but because I'm not interested in the Call of Duty type games. I'm not a first-person shooter guy really, and most of the games that I have interest in, I tend to buy on day one anyway, which is probably something we all regret doing now with so many games. But that first day experience with those games is kind of important to me. So, but Far Cry might tempt me a bit.
Pete Dodd, same question to you.
It's difficult. Part of me wants to say Dragon Age, but I feel like I got burnt so hard on Dragon Age 2, even though everything that I've seen and read and yeah, I know. I do. I really want Little Big Planet 3 as well. Somebody said they were going to actually send it to me, and they haven't. So that's a whole. You just bumming me out right now.
I'm sorry. Dude. I'm sorry.
For those at home not watching this, which is just showing off that he has Little Big Planet 3. I'm a gigantic Little Big Planet fan.
Still in the cellophane.
Both literal and whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna say Far Cry 4 because Far Cry's never disappointed me. Dragon Age though seems like if it's as good as I think it is, I would actually enjoy it more than Far Cry. Little Big Planet 3, I'm just gonna keep on my list of things that I hope that this dude sends to me.
Okay, good stuff. All right, a couple more quickies before we get out of here. Hey, Brian Weedeye, you mentioned there's some sort of a Vita settlement. Am I going to get a check for $50? Because if so, I am very much looking forward to it.
It depends on when you bought it. Did you buy it when it first came out, Rich?
Day one.
Yeah, then you can. Then you should be getting an email. If not, I think there's probably a way to manually request the settlement. Having to do with false advertising, I guess, in the lead up to the Vita's release. And Rich, I know you felt terribly, you felt terrible about the Vita release. So, and you were like, all these features they advertise, they said that I could transfer my PS3 game onto my Vita, but the show they're making me buy copy on both of the consoles, and I can't even do it during a game. I gotta wait until after a game to transfer it over. You were so upset, Rich. This is why. This is how you're getting paid back now, Rich. It's your patience has paid off.
I mean, Pete Dodd started a website called For Your Vita Hype, for crying out loud. That's how day one he is. Pete, how excited are you that you might be getting $50?
Well, I like $50. Absolutely. That's $50 more than I have currently. So I mean, that's a pretty gigantic increase. The thing that I find interesting about this is that, because we were talking about the show earlier, because you guys actually plan these things out, which is not something that Rich and I do on the Dodcast. And so I went and looked it up, and this is about advertisements, like advertisements saying you can do this, this, and this. And for me, and I think this is probably true of a lot of people that are sort of in our position, is I forget where the line of advertisement is and just sort of hype. Because if you go back, like, one of my favorite things is if you go back and watch the E3 where they unveiled the 360.
Oh my gosh!
They promised things that will never, ever, ever. I mean, they weren't ever going to happen, and they promised them, but that was not an advertisement. So like. That's like I'm not giving Sony a pass on this. Like, Sony put this out as ads, and that's awful. Like, they should not be lying about what their product can do in ads. But I'm just saying, like, for people like us, where we're watching press conferences, we're reading press releases, we're reading interviews. Where the BS begins and the truth ends is a very murky, murky place.
I mean, let's face it, we don't even believe anything they say at all. I mean, the only thing that I believe when they make hardware announcements is a machine is going to be available that does stuff, but I don't even care because they have lied or stretch the truth so much with each one of these things that, like you say, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah. I never for 1 second thought that we were going to get like all sorts of remote play on the PS3, but that's again because of the position that I'm in. Like, I've talked to people who are working on getting party chat into the PS3, and there just wasn't enough RAM. So I'm like, if there isn't enough RAM for party chat, how are they going to make like this universal remote play? So in my mind, when they talked about it, I was like, okay, it's going to be the same 5 games that were available for the PSP, and that's fine. And that's the way that I viewed it, but I'm not giving Sony a pass on that because of the fact that there's people who didn't have the information that I had. And they were like, oh, I get to play my PS3 games on this thing? And it's like, well, yeah, if you have Pixel Junk Monsters, you do, but otherwise, no. You don't get to do it.
Brian Weedeye.
Yeah, I was just going to say there was, because I mentioned it earlier related to the show, there was a national advertising campaign. If you remember the guy just walking around like New York or something with his Vita and playing his PlayStation stuff on it, that literally it used the show. The guy was playing his PS3, the show, then picks up his Vita, walks away, and continues the game that he was in the middle of, which, that's just one of, I think, 3 or 4 points the FTC took issue with. But it relates to what we talk about, so I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last main topic for the night. I'm not sure how much you guys have looked into this, but recently Jeff Keighley has announced the Game Awards show. This is no longer the Spike TV Awards. This is something that Jeff Keighley is self-producing, and I'm totally cool with this thing. I mean, we talked about it, you and I know, Pete, in the past, that how like the Spike VGAs were just an embarrassment to everybody involved. Like, I wouldn't sit in a room with anyone that I wanted to know me and watch that show and want to be affiliated with video games. That's how bad it was.
So much just cringeworthy.
Awful. I mean, beyond awful. But the Video Game Awards, it's a new thing. It doesn't have anything to do with Spike. And for the most part, I've actually been fairly impressed with everything, not just what the categories are and what the nominees are, but also just the transparency as to who's a part of this and what it's going to be. It seems to me like this is, for once, a process, or an award show that actually just kind of takes games on merit, and it's even got some interesting categories like Games for Change, which has a couple of my favorite games of the year in them, including Valiant Hearts: The Great War and things like that. So, but one of the categories, now granted, we all know that the Press Row Podcast Sports Game of the Year is the definitive sports game award winner. So we'll just get that out of the way, but there is a category that is called Best Sports/Racing Game, and the nominees are FIFA 15, Forza Horizon 2, Mario Kart 8, NBA 2K15, and Trials Fusion. Of all of the categories, this is the one I had the most problem with, not necessarily because any of those games are not good games, but it's a weird, confusing category. You got enough racing games to have a racing game category. You definitely got enough sports games to have a sports game category. Why the weird meshing of the two, Brian Weedeye?
Well, first, the biggest controversy to me was that sports gamer was not nominated for trending gamer.
Yeah, that's true. Very good point.
Hurtful. Very hurtful.
Yeah, that one baffled me. But this whole mixing the racing games with the sports games, and then do you really consider Trials Fusion and Mario Kart racing games? I mean, they're not. Yeah. They're not really racing games. So these are 5 games that have almost nothing in common. and so I think you miss out on games that deserve recognition. Sometimes just being nominated, it kind of means something. I mean, you have no Pro Evolution Soccer, which probably should have been nominated, Madden, which probably should have been nominated, and then I'm missing one.
The Show.
The Show. Yeah, The Show, which never gets awards recognition from these game shows that are just around the general industry. I think my theory has always been it's because it releases in March or April in this case, and they forget about it. But those are 5 games that at least deserve some sort of recognition, and they're just like, no, there's only 2 sports games that can qualify here, and so I feel bad for those. But then we'll pick them up when we have our own show.
That is true.
Could you imagine, it like going to some sort of popular site, like either just doing it in your Twitter feed or going to GAF or going to Reddit and being like, bros, I need a sports game. Do I get FIFA 15 or Mario Kart? Like, how does that happen? That is the worst combination ever. I mean, like I was happy with a lot of the other choices. I mean, even though I have really enjoyed shooters this year. The fact that there isn't a shooter in their game of the year is actually like somewhat interesting to me.
Yes, I totally agree.
But the sports game, oh my, like that just stood out to me as like, what in the world is happening here? And the fact too, yeah, like you guys said, is like Trials Fusion isn't even the best Trials game. It might not even be the second best Trials game, and it's up for this award over like MLB The Show or whatever. Like it doesn't. It makes no sense.
So, TJ, is it Mario Kart or is it FIFA? Which is it? Make the call right now.
Well, since I won't buy a Wii U, it's probably FIFA. Question. Last year, I watched, what was it, VGX, was it technical term for last year? I watched that intently because they had a Best Sports Game category, and when the VGX ended, there was no winner because they didn't announce it. And then like a half hour later, the Wikipedia page got updated, and I think FIFA won. Are they even going to show this category on the stream, or is it just going to get skipped over like everything else?
I would assume Mario Kart is going to at least get it on the air. And probably win also. But yeah, if Mario Kart wasn't there, they wouldn't care.
Yeah. And maybe that's why Mario Kart is there.
You know what? Actually, that's a great point, TJ. Maybe, for all the fun that we're making of it, a lot of people, as soon as you mention the word sports game, they're like, click, I'm out of here. Maybe this was actually knowing their audience or, purporting to know their audience. Maybe that's exactly why they did it. And maybe, maybe that's why this is the case, and perhaps that is how it gets on the air, whereas last year it didn't. That's a good point, TJ. Well, all right. I think, gentlemen, this is a show. I have enjoyed this thoroughly. TJ, you're still with us. That's good. I thought you might just collapse into a heap on top of your microphone. Thanks for making it through the jet lag.
Trying to keep the eyes open. That's all I'm trying to do.
Brian Woodite, thank you, sir, as always.
Yeah, I'm happy to, and go Hawks.
Oh, boy. And
you like an Atlanta basketball team.
And Pete Dodd, as always, thank you, sir.
Thank you, and go Giants.
Oh, I thought you were going to say go press. Go Press Row Podcast Jets. Right, Pete?
Jesus.
I have 3 wide receivers over 90, and you know that this Madden is all about passing. So just expect a turnaround. That's all I'm saying.
I will.
And then I'll get fired.
Pete, I will buy you Madden 16 if one of your fans has a sign that says, I believe in Jesus.
We need that feature back. We need Create a Fan back. Come on, EA.
Oh, I forgot about that. That was good stuff. All right, well, hey, I want to say thank you to everybody for listening and for watching. I want to say happy Thanksgiving. In all seriousness, it's just one of the best times of the year, and I hope everybody has a great time and is safe and eats a whole bunch of good food. And so on behalf of Pete Dodd from Dodd Scientifics, from TJ Lauerman from That Sports Gamer, Brian Weedeye from Pasta Padre, I am Rich Grisham. Thank you, as always, for listening. Have a safe and happy holiday. Enjoy yourselves, and we will see you again really soon.